So personal brand versus like a brand. I don't know if there's like, I guess a name brand. We started talking about this a little bit yesterday. Obviously, you're going through this with Millennial Money Man.
Yes.
And I don't know how much you've talked about that publicly, so we can talk about that. But I think too, like I've kind of made the decision to build a personal brand in like the last year. So it's interesting, like you're going away from the personal brand and I'm like going toward that. Then we have Pumped Up Empires, which is clearly a name brand. So yeah, I think this will be a fun conversation, and probably this is something that I think people spend way too much time on when they're first starting. Trying to think
definitely
through. I mean, maybe you don't feel that way now with what you're going through, but like, I don't know, I'm curious. So I think let's just talk about like the pros and cons of like personal brand versus a name brand. I don't think there's a right answer, but we can kind of talk about, what people should do, what you're going through. I think people will be interested in what's going on with Millennial Money Man.
Yeah. So my thoughts, honestly, I 100% agree. I think people think about it too much. Like, the reality is, like, you can always make a change down the road. Now, it's not easy, and we'll talk more about that, because, like, I'm not quite going through that yet, but I'm really, like, thinking about a lot of different things with that. But, I think a personal brand never hurts unless you're trying to seek an acquisition. Then a personal brand hurts. Like, that's...
If you don't know what to do, though, when you're starting out, do a personal brand. Because you can always take it with you. Like you can always use it for other things. And if you pivot or change,
I think so.
Like, and you can always there's a lot of people I know that have personal brands, and then they build under their personal brand, they build a brand, and then that becomes, so like, I've talked to him about him a lot, just 'cause I like the guy, but like Ryan Stewman, hardcore closer, like that was what he was known for. Like his personal brand is Ryan Stewman. People would consider hardcore closer, maybe consider that a personal brand, but he's been able to turn it into just like an independent brand. His main thing in his company is Apex, Apex Entourage. Like that is its own brand. Like he has, so he's kind of like created brands underneath his name, and that's worked out well for him. So if you go that way, you can always do that. But the nice thing about your name is, like, if you're building up your name, like, you're always going to have your name. But like you said, it becomes harder with acquisition. I just think maybe you disagree with that. But like for me, if I'm in that and I'm like, I don't know if it should be this or this, like I just go do your name. Just go build up your own reputation and then figure it out later.
So I see it as like three. I actually feel like I see it in three kind of lights. I think that if you look at something like Gary Vaynerchuk, he has his personal brand, and then he has 6, 7, 8 brands underneath
VaynerMedia,
the VaynerMedia,
Vayner Scouting,
it has his name in it, but it's like all of those businesses could be acquired. Like, they're not necessarily about him. They just are. They have his last name attached to it. But he always has his brand, and that's like, he can go get speaking gigs, and he can go write books, and he can be, a best-selling author, and that's all of his social media. At least his primary stuff that he does is under his brand. And then he has other brands that he could package up and sell together, or sell one off, or grow them. And they're loosely related to him, or very related to him, but not totally attached to him. I think that that's an ideal setup.